So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Day 6 of Detroit Lions training camp is officially in the books, and day 2 of padded practices are over. And of course, with the pads come the hits, come the battles, and come the major takeaways. So today, we are going to be taking a look at day 6 of training camp. We're going to be taking a look at day 2 of padded practice for the Detroit Lions, going over the major takeaways, the major injuries, and the major battles. So with all that being said and all that out of the way, let's get straight on into taking a look at day 6 of Detroit Lions training camp. Now, starting off with the winner of today's practice, a lot of people say that the defense won the day. The defense was incredibly physical, was incredibly fast, and they were flying around the football. By many accounts, the defense outperformed the offense in day 6 of training camp, with the stars of the defense coming from the front four. Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, and Charles Harris all shined in day 2 of padded practices, with Aiden Hutchinson in particular being the one main star. Aiden Hutchinson had multiple sacks on day 6, had multiple sacks, one as an edge rusher versus an exterior tackle, as well as one at a 3 technique versus the offensive guard. He has been very, very dominant for a large majority of training camp so far and continued to have another good day of padded practices. Day 1 was kind of a setback, right? Didn't quite have the dominant performances that he had in the first couple of days, but Aiden Hutchinson very, very strongly bounced back in day 2 and picked up a pair of sacks on a couple of really nice moves and a couple of really nice finishes on the quarterback. Now, Aleem McNeil did have his fair share. I know Aleem McNeil had at least one sack on the interior of the defensive line, which is a good thing for them. And then Charles Harris continues his strong camp as well as a pass rusher. And although I don't believe he came away with a sack in competitive team periods, he did have multiple pressures and did very heavily impact the pocket and did heavily impact and pressure the opposing quarterback. Now, with the pads, of course, come the big hits from the defense, and today was a particularly physical practice by many accounts. A lot of people say that there were more hits, there were a lot of players on the ground, there were a lot of physical plays and a lot of physical battles between multiple competitors. And just by all accounts, this was a very grueling practice from a physicality standpoint. There was a few big hits, there was a few scrimmages, there was a few scrums here and there, no big fights, no major outbursts, but there were some players getting very physically upset at some of the big hits being laid by the defense, and I think this is a big part of why the defense is the winner of today's practice, right? The physicality came, the hits came, the wide receivers went from catching against air to catching against real opponents, and the defense for the first time did look very, very good, right? And I know it's very early in training camp. I know that, these are teammates. They're not really trying to hit or hurt each other. They're not really trying to, do a whole lot of damage with these massive hits. But when the physicality gets amped up, our defense seemed to become a better unit, and they seem to thrive off of that physicality and seem to thrive from some of the live tackling drills, which is good to see. Now, getting on to some of the one-on-ones, some of the important matchups of the day, there were a lot of one-on-one matchups between cornerbacks and safety, or between cornerbacks and wide receivers and safeties, and of course, tight ends and safeties and corners as well. Some of the big battles today came from Amani Oruwariye, who matched up versus DJ Chark multiple times throughout the day, and in a very contested, very close-fought battle between the two in the one-on-one rep, DJ Chark did come away with the major win early on in the day. Amani had his fair share of, very close plays. He very nearly knocked some passes away, but DJ Chark was the victor in their matchup today. Khalil Pimpleton, another day of him standing out at Lions training camp as him and Brady Breeze had multiple routes against each other, and Khalil Pimpleton just simply won that matchup. He was a very good route runner, created very good separation versus the safety, and I know that it's a safety and that he's probably not going to be the best in man coverage, but Khalil Pimpleton continues to stack very impressive days on top of one another with his creativity as a route runner, as well as his ability to change direction and separate on a moment's notice. And then the last major battle from today came from Amon-Ra St. Brown versus Deshaun Elliott, and in a very physical press battle, Amon-Ra St. Brown was able to shake the safety for a massive play over the top for the Lions offense. All of these players and all of these matchups were very close, were very contested, right? Amani versus DJ Chark was a very close battle. Amon-Ra St. Brown versus Deshaun Elliott was a very, very close battle, and even Brady Breeze stuck with the shifty Khalil Pimpleton for a while throughout his routes. Now getting on to some other standout players from yesterday, day 6 of training camp, Malcolm Rodriguez is very quickly becoming a star in Detroit. Malcolm Rodriguez, of course, the 6th round linebacker, the underrated, undersized linebacker from the University of Oklahoma State, has continued to earn praise from coaches and the media, from his intelligence to his play on the field. And even though he wasn't quite able to necessarily show off some of that physicality that made him such a force at Oklahoma State early in camp, once the pads came on, Malcolm Rodriguez showed out. On the first day, he had a couple welcome to the NFL moments from offensive linemen getting to the second level, but in day 2, he had multiple tackles for loss on Craig Reynolds, as well as a multiple very, very well-run pass coverage snaps where, he either followed the running back into the flat or he kind of sat in the middle in zone and just read the quarterback's eyes, made a play on the football, and made a huge impact on the second string defense. Now, Demetrius Taylor is another player that we continue to talk about, from rookie minicamp to mandatory minicamp to OTAs and even going into training camp, and he was a very, very productive player at the University of Appalachian State. Again, very much like Malcolm Rodriguez, an undersized player, a player that may not have all of the hype in the world, may not have all of the, physical gifts that you might expect out of a nose tackle or out of a defensive tackle in the NFL, but he does have the explosiveness. And even throughout camp, going against backups, granted, he is making a lot of plays. He is making a lot of pressures. He is forcing the quarterback to make mistakes. He is getting on. He is collapsing the pocket. He is getting past these offensive linemen, making tackles for loss. He is a dominant force versus the backup offensive line or the third string offensive line. Now again, it's against backups, it's in training camp, it's, this and that, and you can make excuses, but the fact of the matter is that Demetrius Taylor is playing very good football throughout training camp, and if he continues this trajectory, it's going to be really hard for the Detroit Lions to not put Demetrius Taylor on the active roster come roster cutdown days. I'm very excited to see Demetrius Taylor play in an actual live NFL game, because I think he's going to be the defensive star of the preseason, right? We're going to have Aiden Hutchinson, of course. We're going to have, Jeff Okudah return. We're going to have Amani back. We're going to have Tracy Walker in the field. But I think Demetrius Taylor will be the defensive, maybe not standout, maybe not be the best player, but I think he's going to be the one defensive surprise that nobody really knows about going in, but he's definitely going to be that defensive standout come the games. And by the time that the third game and by time week 3 of the preseason is over, we're going to be talking about Demetrius Taylor as, maybe even a potential role player going into the NFL season. Now, we do have a little bit of bad news to end the video, and that of course comes with the injury report. The Lions had 2 major injuries today, one of which came to wide receiver Quintez Cephus. After making a really acrobatic catch over cornerback Jeff Okudah, Quintez Cephus was very slow to get up off the field. He laid on the ground, he needed trainers to come over and help him off, and it seemed to be a lower leg injury. He wasn't putting a lot of pressure on his left leg when he left the field and did not return to practice for the remainder of the session. He stayed in the building, stayed in, the trainer's office, stayed in wherever they took him after the injury, and he did not return. And this is, I think, a very big loss for the Detroit Lions because they're already a little bit thin at wide receiver, right? Jameson Williams probably won't play until late October, early November, right? They have DJ Chark, they have St. Brown, they have Josh Reynolds, but now that they don't have either Jameson Williams or Quintez Cephas for likely the start of the NFL season, they are going to be relying on guys like Khalif Raymond. They are going to be relying on guys like Khalil Pimpleton and Trinity Benson to step up. And once this wide receiver core becomes healthy, they are incredibly strong and incredibly deep. But now that you've lost two players for likely for the beginning of the season and for the preseason, it is starting to kind of, show up that maybe this depth is going to have to be relied on a little bit more than what we had originally thought. Now, right now, I'm not too concerned about it because obviously Chark and St. Brown and Reynolds are a pretty good trio at the top. I would say that Khalif Raymond is a fine wide receiver 4, right? He played wide receiver 1 a season ago, so moving him down 4 spots is not a bad thing at all, right? I think Khalil Pimpleton has earned a spot to see what he can do in the preseason. I think Josh Johnson can also do very good things in training camp, but if the wide receiver room continues to face injury, it might start to dissipate pretty quickly. And then Aleem McNeil also did leave practice for a little bit. I think got rolled up a little bit on his ankle or on his lower body, but he did return to practice a few minutes later, did put the pads back on, did go out and did make some big plays after the injury. So that is not anything too concerning. But with all of that being said, that is all we have for you guys today. Those are the major takeaways and the major battles from day 6 of Detroit Lions training camp. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys think about it. How do you feel about the injury to Quintez Cephas in the wide receiver room based off of that? How are you feeling about the physicality and the second day of pads? And just overall, what are your major takeaways from Lions camp? I'd be very curious to you guys think. With all that being said, that is it for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions!